For the last week we've been touring around all the coal communities of New South Wales, and basically they've all got the same story.
There is no intention by the New South Wales government to stop approving coal mines.
Came up with this idea maybe 6 months ago that it would be a good idea to do a bus tour around and talk to all these different groups that are already organising against coal mining.
She was on her own tonight.
We've been talking to local communities about the way they feel about coal mines, how they affect them, and what kind of hopes they have for a just transition.
I've found it really good to link up with a lot of these groups that I'd heard about before and get to meet some of these people and get a real good feel for what they're campaigning on.
I live alongside this river here, the Mary Johnson's River. The coal mining has really built up in this area. We now have 2 coal mines here.
The Ulan coal mine started in the mid-1980s. It was a fairly small coal mining concern, but we were always had a problem with the effects of that particular mine on the Goulburn River. Since then, we've had a major expansion of the Ulan mine.
I've seen a major expansion of the coal industry. I've seen power stations built. Liddell, a Bayswater power station that was constructed in my time here, and I've seen an upgrade of Wallerawang power station out in the Blue Mountains and the new construction of Mount Piper.
The campaign against the Aberville mine started in 1999, and over the years we progressed and broadened our thinking as we grew in knowledge about coal mines, what they do to the environment, and then the broader picture, the global picture, the climate change pictures.
In July of last year, BHP had tried to gain access to this property. We had been through 6 months of litigation and various other processes, and following a complete breakdown in those communications, we then decided to restrain BHP from gaining access to the family property. This blockade has been manned Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. since.
Here the Mudgee District Environment Group and the local community have been up against big multinationals trying to understand in the context of climate change why we are facing this major expansion of the coal industry.
I think sometimes it's pretty easy to be an activist and campaign about stuff when you're in the city and you're far away from where the changes will actually take place, and to really know what you're talking about, I think you do have to go and actually talk to people and go to the places that you're speaking about.
They're producing around about 12 million tonne of raw coal a year, and shifting on average around about between 65 and 70 million bank metres of overburden.
Well, coming from Muswellbrook, I've been living out of home about 4 years, and going back there, and we stood on this lookout and we looked out over the region, and the mines are already like 3 times bigger compared to when I left.
Somewhere in amongst all that dust is the township of Muswellbrook. The mining industry, this is a common day. They blame everybody else. If you go to Mount Arthur Mine and you say to them, "Excuse me, but there's more dust in the air than your consent allows," their response is, "Our consent allows this much and that's what we're doing. All the other dust belongs to somebody else, it's not us."
We have high respiratory problems. We believe we have high cancer. We believe we have high immune problems. Things like polymyelitis, rheumatoid myelitis, things that are actually affected by the immune systems.
My daughter can't live at home anymore because her allergies got that bad when she was doing a HSC. I was running her to the hospital up to 5 times a week. My youngest son has now got asthma.
My own drinking water became undrinkable 2 years ago. One gets no assistance from any government body when you complain about your rooftop catchment water being so tainted that you can't drink it. What I did was pay for my own water analysis, which certainly showed all of the expected contaminants from open cut coal mining.
On top of my roof, on the gutter, is that thick of grey dust that washes down into my tank. And most people in the country do not have town water. They rely on their drinking water from the tank. And when your drinking water is polluted, what are you going to do next?
Pile of dirt over there just been dumped by a truck.
Yeah.
You see that plume that's going up? That'll be one truckload. In another minute or so, though, because they might be running on a minute or a 2 minute rotation, you'll see another pile of dust go up, and that'll be another truck. About 200 cubic metres at a time.
One of the big things that keeps getting overlooked when you hear about coal mining is, the big one is climate change and emissions, but they never mention the impact on the landscapes. The actual coal seam is a aquifer or groundwater storage. Above that, the coal seam is layers of other groundwater, and an important one is what I call the Triassics, and they feed the river the base flow. So it's one of those things you can't take the coal out without interfering with the water, and particularly when they open cut or underground mine, they crack the upper aquifers as well.
We currently have a new environmental assessment report out on public exhibition for the Yulin expansion, where the water study shows that it will take 200 years for the groundwater to return to its current level.
Our latest campaign was part of Durelli's expansion plans were to discharge water into the river, and so we really lodged a very big campaign. We all lobbied the government, and they finally saw fit to ask the mining company Gloucester Coal to withdraw their application to discharge, so that was a huge victory for the people.
As we speak, they're starting their big open cut at the Moolarben coal mine, and they're knocking down, going to be in the end about 460 hectares of remnant forest.
That was a really recurring theme, is mining companies will come in, get an exploration lease, put out lots of glossy pamphlets about how we care about the environment and stuff, and we're just going to have a little mine, and then they'll do their drilling, and then they'll get their mine set up, and then once they get it set up, they'll massively expand it, complete disregard for the local ecology, for the local community, buy out people's properties, pit one person of the community against the other.
My children went to school at the local school. It was a one-teacher school, and that school closed down in 1998 because there were only 8 students there. Due to the mines purchasing properties around the area and not leasing out those houses to anybody, so they fall into disrepair. No one's living there, so the school numbers dropped, and we saw it go from a very prosperous 35 students at one stage when my son was there, down to 8 students within a 10-year time frame.
The other issue that is not addressed is the loss of community, the loss of other income production from those areas. We've lost our fire brigade here at Yulin because all the local landholders have been bought out. The next fire brigade along is now being threatened because of the Moolarben mine. In the Woolar community, we've lost one of our churches, our school numbers have dropped, we've lost a significant number of our local community.
My community is effectively dead. It has reduced in size by 50% when the mine first moved in, because they took over the properties. And since that time, another 60 families have moved out. We're looking at probably about 130 families in the whole area left.
You imagine something becoming so intense that the only option you've got is to sell something that you see should have a longevity in your family, and you're the person that can't live there anymore, and you have to decide to sell out. And that's the only recourse you've got. It's a huge impact on the stress of your family, the stress of your neighbours, and they pick you off one by one.
What's happening here, where we had very cohesive rural farming communities that were producing food for the country, have been forced out of this area, off their land, have had to move somewhere else, and mining workers have come in from other places. So there are some local people that have had employment. There is a bit of a boom happening in Mudgee, but the downside is that there's absolutely no housing available in the area now. The rental prices are going through the roof. Anyone that's not actually getting the really highly inflated mine wages is at a major disadvantage.
What you've got is my husband earns a good living. For that, he works 12-hour shifts, rotating shifts. We don't have a social life. We don't have very little family life. I think it's more of an impact on younger families. You're either working, some are working 3 shifts, they're working day work, afternoon and dog watch. Some people are doing 2 shifts, some are working what they call 5 panel. It is nobody's working the same. So there's no integration of community. It's been a loss of community in that there's nobody now, we're finding nobody to turn around and coach kids for any longer than 2 weeks.
Coal companies have set up legislation to allow them to mine, and they've got every little aspect and made it just suited for them to create this iron wall of state legislation that will let them do whatever they want.
You know that as soon as an exploration licence has been granted, there will be a coal mine. The whole process of environmental impact statements is a total farce.
Basically, mining companies have got a lot of boxes to tick. They will talk to the government time and time again to ensure that the boxes are all ticked to the satisfaction of the government, and by the time it comes to the public consultation or the public have anything to do with it, largely it's a fait accompli. They get a bad assessment from someone, which has happened, well, that goes to light the barbecue.
We discovered that we had very few rights, that the legislation was sufficiently and quite seriously skewed in favour of the mining companies, and BHP had access to our land.
The New South Wales Mining Act is a creation designed specifically to remove the freehold land rights of any landholder in this nation, and it is time that those issues were addressed sooner rather than later.
My biggest concern is the lobbying power this mining company, the mining industry has to state government, and we've got nothing.
I'm become very passionate about how the coal industry has got such a stranglehold over local and state governments, and to a bit with our federal government, how they're calling the shots.
The things that we experienced along the way is how difficult it is to lobby against the coal lobby, the money and the influence that you come against.
Prior to the change in our local government council here, I believe the then structure of that council were taking anything at all that the mining companies could dish out.
It also comes in with donations that mines and power stations give to the community, their community participation in it. You know, very hard to turn around and say, look, we're going to knock back $250,000 from a mining company or a power station when that $250,000 builds a youth centre. It's a trade-off. It's like buying. It's a bribe. It's a bribe.
As I looked out to the coal fires burning, and the coal mines spreading, and the turbines turning, and the dust clouds rolling, and the country dying, this land belongs to BHP.
The things the coal industry is willing to do in the next 10 or 15 years to get the last bits of coal before it becomes clear that they can't anymore are really extreme.
So the mine will extend basically across this whole, they'll just take up that whole mountain. All the infrastructure will be down on the flat here, there'll be a rail loop.
And it will do a lot of damage for a lot of years if we let them do what they're applying for.
The sad thing about it, folks, is it's getting bigger. They are just in the process of upgrading now to what we call, I'll just turn the back to here, around this section round in here, it will be called the South Pit Extension. All this country that you see just down in front of us down here, that will all be turned over, and further around the back of what we call Mount Arthur just up here. That'll all go as well.
I came here in 1970 and you know, it's a nice place. Rob got a job in the coal mine, that's great, everything else. Life was wonderful. We had the best of everything. We had Singleton cheese still. Yeah. We still had a dairy industry. We still had all these things. And what changed over the years was the number. So all those places that are starting out now, if they let one in, the problem is it's too late.
Yeah. As far as we are concerned, there is no decision that can be taken other than the fact that either longwall or open cut mining cannot take place in these valleys.
The Yulin mine, which is 22k away from my place, is multiplying its production by 4. And they have an assessment on the books now. And the Moolarben mine is about to start up. The Wilpinjong mine is expanding. There's another mine the other 7k away from my place. There's another mine at Cobra or Lees Creek, which is further west of here. But all of these mines will be using the same railway line which runs past my place, and the increase in the trains alone will be enough to keep everybody awake. So this builds up a picture in my mind of an era of desperation about this, this unwanted increase in the number of mines.
They can afford to pay lawyers and people that sit in an office from day to day thousands of dollars to fight us, and a lot of us have got education, but we're not skilled in these types of things, and it really is a battle.
We fight all the people you can't see. You fight the bureaucrats, you fight state planning, you fight the governments, you fight everything that you can't physically see or get a hold of to put your hand around their bloody throats and give them a good shake.
I think the fundamental thing that's happening is that people feel as though we're getting to the point where it's not acceptable to just presume that the government and the coal industry will work out what's okay among themselves, because it's becoming clear that the government has no intention to exercise any control, and the coal industry will just mine whatever they can have, and they're putting in applications for ludicrous amounts of land and coal and exploration and expansion, and people are just looking at it and thinking that's just outrageous.
One of the things that we've learned coming out of this is how clever the coal industry is in dividing a community. And also how clever they are at creating perceptions that you have no ability to bring about change or to protect your rights. Certainly you do, and it's certainly worth fighting for.
Right back in the early days, one of the things that I can remember we all went down and stood outside Wombo Mine with placards and that because they wouldn't talk to us. And it was quite funny to see 70 and 80-year-old women standing out on the highway with these placards, you know. And normally it's like, it's sitting here, and I don't want to be disrespectful, it's like we see on the news people like yourself standing there holding placards up, and it was like the Granny Brigade. but in saying that, it worked. It worked, you know, and we got to talk to them. I'm not saying that those talks have been successful, but at least it opened the door, and they knew that we were fair dinkum and serious.
If everybody sits back and think that and leaves it up to the mining companies, the resource companies to manage their business and dare anyone make any comment about it, well, I think that's a very, very unbalanced society that we live in.
I find Australia a disgrace. You look at Europe and some of the countries over there, they stand up for their rights and stand up a bit better. They march. What do? Sit there on our bums and just look and say, oh, it'll be all right. You know, it's the attitude of Australians saying it's going to be okay, mate. This has to go.
The manager of the big Australian mine has commented a few times and made it quite evident to me that negativity won't be accepted. The year before last, I was wheeled into his office and he spoke to me at length about my ever-growing presence in the media. They don't like it one bit because I speak out. I really don't care what they think.
There is going to be ambient air quality monitoring done in the Hunter Valley now as a result of the community being active, complaining, going to the press.
The only thing that I really see can make changes or stop things is to actually have the public behind you and to making a lot of noise and doing it continually. Let the people know that you will not go away.
One of the things that the Amble Hill campaign developed, I suppose, is from there the Gloucester group grew strong, the Caroona groups grew strong, and each group has progressed those campaigns on further and further. So they're progressively fighting harder and more collectively, and that's a nice thing to see.
You know, the support has been overwhelming. I think that what's happened, we have touched a very raw nerve.
And I stood for council as I felt that was the next step that I could take in my life to try and bring about change.
We've had every political party represented here. We've had the union movement, we've had retirees, we've had farmers, graziers, city people, mine workers.
I've always been active in the trade union movement, and because of that I formed alliances with other groups like the Upper Hunter Greens and Rising Tide from Newcastle, and also quite a few climate action groups from Sydney.
We have had the development of a tremendous group of young women throughout the district. They have joined SOS and they've been incredibly powerful.
Myself personally, we still live on the Amble Hill mine site. We haven't sold our property to them and we have no intentions of selling it to them.
It's a very unusual thing to think that retired, sensible Liberal voting farmers would be manning a blockade. However, the times are changing, the climate is changing, and it's not just out the window.
I don't think these communities are necessarily going to be able to fight off an enormously powerful coal industry on their own. They can make a really good attempt at it, but I think they do really need the support of activists and campaigners from outside.
I'm here part of a bus tour of people touring the coal infected area. We've decided to stop here in Canberra and show our displeasure at the politicians in there who are not listening to the people who want to cut in emissions and who want to phase out the coal industry and all the polluting industries.
I'd like to see the mining industry as it is to the coal mining industry here in the Hunter Valley stop expanding. We need to be getting away from coal mining altogether. We need to be getting into renewables, and I'm talking about, well, today for example, a lot of sunshine, there's a breeze in the air as we speak, and a perfect combination for solar thermal and wind power.
There's quite a lot of funding out there available for renewable energy infrastructure, and we want that here.
We need to move away from coal and from all other forms of dirty, polluting energy production and into clean, renewable energy production. But we need to do it in a way that guarantees all workers a job, a stable job, and that communities still have a diverse economy.
Climate change is going to force us to change within, I believe, certainly no later than 5 years.
We can fight together. Yeah, I wanna be the water.
We don't want to see riots in Muswellbrook because people are worried about losing their job. We want to have a transitional industry where these people can see, well, okay, the coal industry is coming to an end, but guess what? I can get a job there making wind turbines.
For what little benefit the local communities are getting from the so-called benefits of coal mining, we will be much better off putting our money, our resources into solar thermal and solar wind power, and try and get some of the health back that our community is lacking from at the moment.
Got no heart, I got no right, and if you decide to fight, please know that we can fight together.
It's definitely not doom and gloom that the coal industry portraying. It's not turning off the lights, it's not going back to caves, it's moving forward.